All right, welcome back. So today we are going to be reading chapter 4 of Sideways Stories from Wayside School. In chapter 3, we met Joe, who is a student in Mrs. Jewell's class on the top floor of Wayside School. And Joe was having a tough time because he didn't know how to count. At first, he was counting the wrong way, but getting the right answer. So if there were 3 things he was counting, he would say 4, 7, 3. He'd get the right answer, but he wasn't counting the right way. Then Mrs. Jules was trying to tell him how to count the correct way, and then he was counting the correct way but getting the wrong answer. So it got to be kind of tricky. And then Mrs. Jules said, you know what? Someday you'll know how to count. You'll wake up and you'll just know how. And by the end of the chapter, he woke up and he knew how to count. And he was able to count all of the hairs on his head. And there was a lot of them. So today we are going to be reading about another student at Wayside School, and her name is Sharie. Okay, so here we go. Sharie had long eyelashes. She weighed only 49 pounds. She always wore a big red and blue overcoat with a hood. The overcoat weighed 35 pounds. The red part weighed 15 pounds. The blue part weighed 15 pounds, and the hood weighed 5 pounds. Her eyelashes weighed 1.5 pounds. She sat next to the window in Mrs. Jewell's class. She spent a lot of time just staring out the window. Mrs. Jewell didn't mind. Mrs. Jewell said that a lot of people learn best when they stare out a window. Sharie often fell asleep in class. Mrs. Jewell didn't mind that either. She said that a lot of people do their best learning when they are asleep. Sharie spent all of her time either looking out the window or sleeping. Mrs. Jewell thought she was the best student in her class. One afternoon it was very hot. All of the windows were open, yet Sharie still wore her red and blue overcoat. The heat made her very tired. Mrs. Jewell was teaching arithmetic. Sharie pulled the hood up over her face, buried herself in the coat, and went to sleep. Mrs. Jewell, said Kathy, Sharie is asleep. That's good, said Mrs. Jewell. She must be learning something. Mrs. Jewell continued with the lesson. Sharie began to snore. Mrs. Jewell, Sharie is snoring, said Kathy. Yes, I can hear her, said Mrs. Jewell. She must be learning an awful lot today. I wish the rest of you could be like her. Sharie began to toss and turn. She flopped over on top of her desk and then rolled over on top of Kathy's desk. Then she rolled back the other way. Kathy screamed. Sharie rolled out the window. She was still sound asleep. As you know, Mrs. Jewell's class was on the 30th story of Wayside School, all the way at the top. So Sharie had a long way to go. After she had fallen 10 stories, Sharie woke up. She looked around. She was confused. She wasn't in Mrs. Jewell's class, and she wasn't at home in bed. She couldn't figure out where she was. She yawned, pulled the hood back over her eyes, and went back to sleep. By that time, she had fallen another 10 stories. Wayside School had an exceptionally large playground. Lewis, the yard teacher, was way over on the other side of it when he happened to see Sharie fall out of the window. He ducked under the volleyball net, hurtled past the kickball field, hopped over the hopscotch court, climbed through the monkey bars, sped across the grass, and caught Sharie just before she hit the ground. The people in Mrs. Jewell's class cheered. Sharie woke up in Lewis's arms. Darn it, Lewis, she said. What did you go in to wake me up for? I'm sorry, Sharie, said Lewis. I'm sorry, Sharie repeated. Is that all you can say? I was having a wonderful dream until you woke me up. You're always bothering me, Lewis. I can't stand it. She laughed and hugged him around the neck. Lewis carried her back up 30 flights of stairs to Mrs. Jewell's room. That evening, when Sharie went to bed, she was unable to fall asleep. She just wasn't tired. And that is the end of our chapter about Sharie. In our next chapter, chapter 5, we are going to be reading about another student named Todd. And here's a picture of Todd. Looks like he might be getting involved with some people he's not supposed to be. But we'll learn more about that next time. I'll see you later.